For USCFootball.com, I'm Keely Eure here with Dan Weber for instant analysis of USC's Tuesday practice of Arizona State Week. Now, if you were expecting dramatic changes after a loss to Utah, if USC's coaching staff would come into practice and change everything around, that's definitely not what we saw. It was definitely an interesting practice for more than one reason. Well, first off, full pads, but it was a shorter practice than we were used to seeing, and they didn't do the final 11-on-11 team period, so that was a little interesting. And then the second thing, of course, was you're down two scholarship players. Of course, JT Daniels and Matt Fink were out today, so Jack Sears became QB1. So that was a couple of changes in practice today.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give away my my little lead for the column. Is Jack Sears was asked what happened when you were told, at the end of the fall camp competition you were third string, and he said, well, I'd spent so much time thinking about competing and winning the starting job. He said, I didn't have a plan B or a plan C. And the thought going through my head at that point in time was, no, Jack, you are plan C right now. I mean, sure. So plan A and B both, didn't make it through the Utah game. So, and Jack's not a bad plan C. I thought it was interesting that they didn't close out with the final 11-on-11 team period. Yeah. It was an interesting choice. And I think Clay gave us another insight into, where Clay's thinking diverges from a lot of people talking about Monday's, quote, practice, that they cut it short and they weren't on the practice field as long because they wanted to spend extra time correcting all the things that went wrong in the one-on-one battles that they lost Saturday at Utah. All the times where they had the head on the wrong side, their feet weren't right, their hand placement wasn't right. All of those things that they got wrong that caused them to just get whipped really badly by Utah. They decided we will correct those in an overly critical film session. Not on the field. Cut that short. Don't want to practice too much out on the field because you can do it in a film session. That's probably where an awful lot of people would say, what? You've got physical beats, physical mistakes, and you're going to correct them inside, not at practice. Okay. And that's where, the issue kind of comes, with a lot of people and where this team is going and how it's trying to get there is how do you correct those things? Yep. How do you get them to where they have to be? How do you get the run game? How do you get the run game better by showing film? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for how that's possible.
Yeah, well, after the Utah loss in instant analysis, you said that it needs to be done on the practice field and not in the film room, and it seems like they did the opposite. I mean, why do you think there's this disconnect from what everyone thinks needs to happen going forward?
I think it's, the way you look at football. I think quarterbacks and ex-quarterbacks look at it a different way. They're more into, film study and not so much the physical part of it. If you're a quarterback, been one mostly those guys since they were in grade school, you were probably not hitting people and you weren't being hit. And once you got to high school and college, you were probably wearing the, yellow jersey or whatever color jersey. And I don't think you think about the game in the same way. I don't think Lane and Steve Sarkisian did as well. So there's kind of a thought that, no, we can get the job done in film session. We can get it done with the game plan, with, going over, at the chalkboard and doing all this stuff. And then there's the other school thinks that, no, you can only get this better, get it right by doing it in practice and doing it full speed, under game conditions, game tempo, game pressure. And I mean, and we were sort of conditioned to that. If you haven't coached and haven't done it yourself, that's how I thought it had to be done when I was a coach. But, I'm just a high school coach. But Pete Carroll, that's how he did it. He did it on the practice field. He did it full speed, full competition, as much as they could do it, even though they did it with shorter practices. But you had to compete against somebody who was as good as you were pretty much every day. And that really forced people to get better. And it forced them to compete, forced them to be more than ready by the time Saturday came here. So you work real hard during the week. Saturdays are a lot more fun. You don't work as hard during the week. Saturdays are not a lot of fun, as USC's finding out. But yeah, there's a real difference of opinion as to, and it's obvious Clay really believes that's the way to get them better, get things better, is to do it on film and be really, critical in the film room. And doesn't seem to be working so far.
Yeah. As we mentioned, Jack Sears was QB1 today. Walk-on Holden Thomas was the second-team quarterback. There was some rust, as you would expect from a guy who was the third-string quarterback, now promoted to first. And, of course, walk-on Holden Thomas is still a walk-on. No offense to him, but there were some miscommunication errors, some interceptions, so it wasn't the cleanest day of practice. But as far as JT Daniels go, Helton said that it's pretty much day by day at this point. It's up to the doctors to clear Daniels, but they're not necessarily reinventing the wheel at this point of the season. So it's not like if, say, JT gets cleared on Wednesday or Thursday, he won't really miss much. So he could be able to be thrown into the game and be okay. But as far as quarterbacks play goes and how you're seeing Jack Sears progress, what are you seeing out there?
Well, I mean, as Brian Ellis will say and Clay will say, he's an athlete. He is an athlete. And he hasn't had a chance to get very many reps the last 7-8 weeks. But he's an athlete. He's hung in there, and everybody says he is, and he says it as well, that he's prepared as if he was going to play, and you got to give him credit for that. That's terrific. So it could be a great story. He's athletic enough. You just don't know how this all plays out. What does Arizona State try to do? People are not doing what it looks like they're going to do on film. Yeah. So, and USC's had to really adjust to some of that. Will this give Arizona State a little pause to say, geez, I'm not sure, what are they going to do with this new quarterback? But USC, I think, has to be able to run the ball. They haven't proved that they can run the ball for all kinds of reasons. And if they can't run the ball, how many touchdowns can you score, with the defense and special teams? It comes down to that to some extent. I just think, I don't know that we saw anything that happened on the practice field today that you would say, oh, okay, I see what they're going to do. And I think that gives them, a better chance or not. I don't know that we've seen, we didn't see, as you kept saying, and as Clay kept saying, they're not reinventing the wheel. I mean, these will not look like, oh, they're doing something different. They're probably not.
I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If they're not directly, from what we can see, trying to do different things to fix the run game, what should fans expect on Saturday as far as the offensive performance?
I think you said offense. I was saying, what do fans expect? I think they need to, expect that the defense better throw a shutout. But short of that, I think it's a big challenge. Arizona State, way better than their record. They've had the bad luck to play Colorado and Stanford and Washington, I guess, back to back. And so you come in with a 1-3 record, so they're in last place in the Pac-12 South. But they've got guys, N'Keal Harry, a receiver, and Manny Wilkins, a quarterback, who've been playing against USC forever, it seems like, and are really good players. And Herm Edwards is going to do some things differently, but you would think Arizona State will say, wow, this is an opportunity for us, to get out of the cellar, get our season turned around. And we've been really close. Now we just have to take advantage. I think we don't know what to expect from the offense, because I think we really, really don't know who's going to be the quarterback.
Yeah.
Much as we can talk about Jack Sears, I don't know that that's, I don't know which way I'd come down. If you had to bet on it, yeah. You would think there's at least as much of a chance that JT will be the quarterback as Jack. Yeah. They have to prepare as if it's Jack, and I think I would absolutely agree with Brian Ellis. They can win with Jack Sears as quarterback. I don't think there's any question about that. But they can't turn the ball over. They can't have the dumb penalties. They can't stop themselves. As T. Martin was saying on offense, said they just totally didn't execute on third down. They just absolutely, there's 3 and outs and 3 and outs and 3 and outs. And so they couldn't stay on the field. The defense finally gets worn out. They have to be able to stay on the field. And they haven't figured out exactly how to be able to do that all the time. Their numbers, and virtually every part of the offense are just horrendous. When you look at national stats and you look at all the different things that, go into, analyzing what an offense does, they are just, they're below 100 in so many of those. Ryan Abraham did a really good, advanced stats story about the USC offense, and it's incredible how bad this offense is right now. So, you got to expect improvement, but we haven't necessarily been seeing that.
Yeah, as far as USC's defense goes, they're pretty banged up, quietly, I think. Marvell Tell did a lot of rehab today. He has an AC shoulder sprain, I believe. Cam Smith is still pretty gimpy with his hamstring type injury. And then also John Houston was limited. He did get his left ankle wrapped, I believe. So that's some of your veteran defensive guys out there for at least practice week this week.
Yeah, thank goodness for the freshmen and guys like Talanoa Hufanga and Palai'e Niautete. They have been the stalwarts. Had you not had those two guys ready to go, I'm not sure where this defense would be. But and I think we're seeing really good work from Jay Tufele. I think Brandon Peely to go in there and play with his AC sprain last week. I thought that was a great effort, by him. I thought Christian Rector had a great effort. John Houston, 15 tackles. You can't ask for a lot more. Levi Jones, every time you see him out there, is doing something. A lot of good stuff happened on defense until eventually, after all the 3 and outs, they're gonna run out of gas. And when the other team has 81 plays to your 54. That makes life just almost impossible for the defense. But I think for the last few weeks, the defense has been a bright spot.
Yeah, without a doubt. Any final thoughts before we wrap it up on this Tuesday?
No. I think we said it all. Is what USC doing this week addressing the issues that have gotten them to where they are? And that's the big question. And it doesn't look like they're really necessarily addressing those, other than, we don't sit in on the film sessions, so we don't know exactly, what's happening there. But to transfer, from the film session to the field, we're not exactly seeing that. So we can only go by what we see. We can only go by what we see on Saturdays. And will this week be any different from previous weeks? Again, I'll use the word that they use, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will be.
Or the word we always use at the end of Instant is, we'll see. So I guess we'll see. But for Dan Weber, I'm Keely Eure. That's going to wrap it up for Instant Analysis on a Tuesday.